All right, welcome to the Furry World podcast. Of course, this is our first episode here of the podcast on the channel, and as such, I am the host, Aethelwulf, the Viking Wolf, and I'm here with a wonderful, longtime friend and amazing artist, Skreeborg. You may introduce yourself.
Hello, and thank you, Aethelwulf, for having me on the podcast. It's a really unique opportunity for me. I don't really get to deep dive into what I do and all this stuff, so I'm eager to see if anyone thinks I'm remotely interesting. I'm cool about it though. So my artist name is Skreeborg, or you can call me Borg online. I typically do digital art such as things like cyberpunk, social sci-fi, and speculative fiction is what I'm going more toward in the future.
Mhm.
So that is essentially the style and the gist there.
Indeed, indeed. Of course, as we talk, you just finished the commission for me, which by the time this airs, you'll have posted. Everyone will seen the amazing work you've done. But let's actually start at the beginning because I actually have a couple of questions in regards to you as a digital artist. Because when we met initially, of course, in 2018, Megaplex in Orlando, I knew you as a musician, and we'll definitely delve into that a bit. Latter part, later part, I mean. But I didn't know you also did digital art. When did you start doing that?
So it was very much a hobby for me growing up, and I know some people listening can relate to having ever done the Nintendo DS. There's the app called Flipnote Hatenna, or Flipnote Studio, as it's called, uh, offline, and it is a great way to express yourself with flip notes and MVs and things like that with your own like characters. So that's how I got started, like that long back. If we're going way back, so it
Uh,
went from there, just more so like hobbyists and Photoshop and things like that. And I didn't really ever do it on a more skilled level until sometime during college, or more so after college in 2018. So that is when I really started to hone in and look to apply this more so for anything I do musically, and then also in turn for anyone else who will like my professional services. I thought it would be great to do it more so for like fellow musicians, fellow artists, bands, stuff like that.
yeah.
So that is that is essentially how I got my start, and like where I tend to be more aligned.
hmm did you do the art? This is just again little reference. Maybe no one has seen it. I don't know. But did you do the art to that card that you handed out in 2018? You know that purple card with your the previous name you were using for
Yes,
your art. Oh,
yes, and that is the version of my Fursona way before it is now. It's completely different. It's like more of a full-blown cyborg fox as opposed to, like, just the cyborg eyes. So, that is something that is, if you have that, cool. Uh, you got a very early, look at, my persona, so that, it's still in the works too, so,
mm. The evolution of you as an artist.
yes.
Um, much like watching real artists kind of grow and evolve through their art musically. You know, thinking like Bowie and stuff. But you mentioned, of course, Fursona. Let's let the folks who maybe don't know you know. Of course, mine is so basic. I mentioned it in the title. But what is your Fursona, and where did you uh, come with the idea to choose that specifically?
Alright, I had just been more lenient toward Fox in general, growing up, like, I had used characters of that, and various things I posted, and in terms of more recently, uh, I just like the idea of, say, it's a very vague idea, but the basic gist of my persona is he's been like modified, right, to better serve, his corporate overlords. So basically, like he sold himself in that way, but then decided to digress and to escape that mindset. So now he sees the world in zeros and ones, and basically, um, he either regrets it or just will have to live with it. But that's basically the mindset.
And of course, mine being a change for most reasons, just a basic white wolf with Scandinavian heritage, if you will, or Scandinavian relevance. Um, which, of course, Viking is just a job; it's not a culture or a blood. So we go more on the Dane side on that one. But moving a little forward here, so we've got kind of pat down here on what you do and sort of who you are with your Sona, and a little bit of a surface touch of the art. But let's delve into that a bit deeper. Um, get some better brush strokes on that. So you started up in 2018 to get a little bit more seriously in art, digital art here. Uh, do you have any to reference, of course, do you have any of that early work on your Twitter?
So basically, the only thing I have publicly posted right now in regards to Skreeborg
Mhm,
is, so it's been more of a transition from college when I did music until like when I really started posting officially Skreeborg was more
mhm.
in summer of 28 or summer of 2020, my bad. Um but I do have like little hints and flares of like earlier work, but they're sort of either that they had been posted elsewhere but have been removed, or yeah, it's just been it's it's not something I typically have ease of access.
Kept up.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I remember, and I told this in the second episode, which is coming up, but since this is the first, I'll mention it again. But, my very first piece of art, uh, was a digital art, I think it was like MS Paint, of a Spinosaurus Sona
Oh
because I
yeah,
had never
MS
seen
Paint.
one. And, it disappeared into the vast expanse of the internet. I have no clue if it's even still accessible in any way, shape, or form. So I get that. A lot of my stuff I kinda, like, just cringe if it's not good. But, um, what did you use at first, your medium, when you started up?
Are you referring specifically to like art programs, or are you referring to like
Yeah.
platforms?
So, like, I use a XP Pen Artist 22 Pro, whatever, Turtle Pop Bibbidi Boo tablet. Uh, I know you currently use an iPad. What did you start when you were taking it seriously? Your medium and the programs that you used.
So I started out before I did it more uh, professionally, I would say, um, using a Intuos by Wacom. It
Mhm.
was from like a 2013 edition. I've been using it until it just like worn down so much. But I had been using Photoshop, and of course, anyone who is familiar with Adobe and their products, that's something that is like a subscription-based thing. And
Yeah.
so you either have the whole thing or you have like the photography, so where it's like $10 a month. But I end up doing like I was doing the whole Adobe suite. I was doing some other projects, so I end up doing like the whole thing on a discount. But anyway, uh, that is what I started with, and then I end up transitioning in 2020 to Affinity Photo, and that is something I did briefly. Uh, what I had discovered was it's a when you're using a photo editor, the user experience is more aligned for photo editing, less so the painting and convenience of swapping out brushes and things like
Yeah.
that. Whatever makes a more natural feel and gets the artist feeling like they are in a flow state. Um, so I ended up going from Affinity Photo, and I was still using like a tablet of sort to the iPad Mini, and I ended up switching to Procreate, which is what I use currently. And based on any of my experiences, and I'm not knocking any other. I'm not even knocking Photoshop. I'm not knocking Affinity. It's just it didn't work for me personally. Um,
Right.
and so there are other programs I would highly recommend too, but I'm not going to get into that. But basically, to every artist, each his or her own.
Hmm.
But for me personally, I just wanted more of that simple user interface, very quick workflow with just me and a Apple Pencil, whatever I just prefer to use.
Oh, indeed. I actually have an iPad as well, iPad Mini. Um, I think it's first gen. I would say I don't really use it much anymore, but I'm using a tablet now, which is about half, yeah, like one fourth the size of my TV, and that's great as a touchpad. So I use Photoshop, and I found I tried to go into those freer programs, even Affinity, and I had the same kind of issue with Affinity, in that it's just kind of like for an artist, it's not quite user friendly, or maybe I'm using it wrong. I don't know. But the other ones, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a simpleton, but I personally,
Mhm.
for me, I like Photoshop. But the subscription base, I'm so tired of everything being like a microtransaction or a subscription. So I just do Photoshop itself, and it works. To each their own, of course. Again, but something that I do love for me that I've built up on Photoshop that I know every single digital artist has out there, and I'm very fascinated to learn about. If not, obviously, is like secret spices. I'm talking about like brushes
Yes.
and little minutia that every artist uses to sort of create what is characteristically them. So I've got a brush set. Some are custom, some are not. Textures, etc., etc. For what you use, because that stuff's foreign to me on anything other than Photoshop. Uh, what kind of like custom brushes or textures or anything of that nature do you put into your work? Are you able to with the programs you use?
So Procreate is really interesting. It doesn't use like your typical Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint brushes. It has its own sets of brushes, and any ones that are created are specifically for Procreate. But what is very interesting is you have, I would say, perhaps more control over those brush settings. You have a little bit more versatility when it comes to things like dynamics, when it comes to like when you're applying the pencil, with- like pressure tilt. You have just more options for blending and things like that. In my to my understanding, um, but there are some packs that I lean toward from artists like, she's in a furry fandom, Mary Merck. Um, I don't really know where she's from, but it's got some amazing brushes. There's some other ones I just can't remember off the bat. Things like fur brushes are big for me. I'll either have some like crispy ones or some that just give me more block in control, so it has just good direction, and I'm able to sort of maneuver things very easily with that texture in mind.
Oh, indeed. Um, I've got a fur brush set on standby. I still have to install. But let's stick to what you just put out today. Of course, today is not when this is released. Today is April 9th. This will be released end of the month. So it's an end of the month podcast. Keep it nice and sleek. But in regards to the art that you did for myself, which I think is incredible in the texture, it's simply amazing how detailed this is. Now I know you just had an upgrade too, but I mean I've mentioned this before to you. All the other stuff when you're using the previous iPad is still so rich in texture and detail. It's incredible the work that you do with what you have. Um,
Right.
how are you able to capture this perfect, like the texture of what you're doing, like the T-shirt, the clothing, obviously fur is fur, but I mean even the beads and the hammer. How are you like magic and your cyber digital technology just integrating into this texture work? Like, is that something that you take forever to do, or is that something that you get like brushes for?
Right. So, there's a combination of things that this will be especially applicable for like concept artists or things like that.
Hmm.
Um, so, of course, it is those texture brushes that are very important too, because otherwise, dialing all those little details in would just be like wanting to tear your hair out. But so of course, when I get the composition going and I just have a general outline, a general form of everything, like with the tunic of yours. Um, I'll use some like it's like a turpentine brush in
Yeah.
Procreate. It's really great for like fur, for fabric, for things like that. You really get some like crispy details out of it, and you can also blend it very nicely with the same
Hmm.
brush, so it's not like so digital looking. Um, and then sometimes like with those look of woven fabric, um, this will apply to like all kinds of texture. It could be like, scales, it could be, like rock or something like that, using like using a photo texture and just warping it to more contour with the body. Of
Hmm.
course, the idea is just you have to blend it very well, otherwise it looks like you literally applied a photo, but that's a part of it, and it definitely helps. And also,
Oh
like,
yeah.
making some like, with highlights, you just, like, brush in some of those little highlights, and it makes it look more, like, it has substance, like it's more real.
Indeed, and it's pretty incredible just going off of this image itself. Obviously, there's all your other ones prior to as well. But quick notation on this picture that you sent me today is so incredibly composed with the highlights and the as my chair always squeaks. Um,
Hmm.
the highlights and the darks. Do you use any
Do I use
reference? How do you get your lighting? Do you use anything for that, like a reference photo of models, or do you just kind of start applying stuff and then sort of go from there and see what looks right?
Yeah, so I'm getting like a great feel of like over time of knowing I have to get a composition going before I like really get toward that finish line, because otherwise like I will struggle with values and stuff.
Yeah.
So um I had to I had to like figure that out before I like started doing more details with yours. And that's what I'll be doing going forward, because otherwise, I'll just, like, not have a slight clue of, like, where the lighting is gonna be coming from, and if I don't have that in mind, I don't really like, it the it will have a great effect on the contour of, like, faces and, muscles and whatever it is, your character, what makes your character look like your character. Uh, but, it definitely has an effect if and I try to dial it in not too dark because otherwise it'll just look uh it will look rather like blurry.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say other sort of really good examples of that you've done is there's the uh, uh, I cannot pronounce his name, but there's a white and or maybe a cream and tan cat that kind of looks like Neo with some grays and oranges in the background. Beautiful texture on that image.
oh
Y'all need to go look on the Twitter for that one. But also, uh, I see there's a Viking horse too. But anyway,
yes.
otherwise, the like there's two specific images that I want to reference in regards to this beautiful work that you've done in with highlights with that texture detail. Um, don't think it's on your there are others on your Twitter, but there is a specific one. It's the one that you did with the piano.
Oh, that one. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's not on your Twitter, but obviously if you look up at Skreeborg, which we will reference many times here, it does pop up in the search from the person I believe that commissioned it. That is a very beautiful photo.
Yes. Um so that one definitely took some great attention to detail in regards to like the angle and the piano itself. That's like very much the focal point along with of course the gentlemanly skunk playing it. But basically um it's like there are some things that I will make and I will like be reminded of them and I'm like, oh yeah, I made that. And then this is one of them. It's like um the thing is like I love how it turned out.
Hmm.
The only thing is it's like it is very much it's like every artist has an art range, right?
Yeah,
They have like their more specialty stuff, but then they also have some other sorts of styles and stuff they'll sort of tangent to. And was one of those, particularly for like the mood and the lighting and such. It it is not something that by any means I'm like trying to hide, but it's definitely something that is like it's there. I'm I love it to death, but it's like it is a little bit off my general theme,
yeah.
but I'm glad I could do it because I learned something.
Oh, indeed, indeed. It's definitely that popped out at me when I saw it originally, and obviously all your work is incredible. Uh, to me, at least, obviously, while you're on the podcast, I think you're pretty much right there on the Mount Rushmore, if we could say, as it's a common saying, Mount Rushmore of artists in the fandom at the moment. For me, obviously, I think you're what top three. I'd put you at one,
You
but that's
are
me.
too kind, but thank you.
Mhm, mhm. But for me, obviously, there's a couple like really amazing artists that are doing like semi-realistic to realistic art that I could never do in a million years, even with practice. But I want to know your favorites and the artists that you use um, as a reference or as a comparison or as someone that inspires you when you're doing your work. What are your favorite artists?
So, that's a good one, and I get some inspiration from uh, a lot of my earlier ones. I would say were Tokyozilla. They're a very popular in the fandom in terms of like doing patron work and such. Royz is one that does like semi-realistic uh, and does somewhat like fantasy and sci-fi as well.
Hmm.
Uh, there are just a number of artists I could name, but the ones that come out of my head right now that I like pay close attention to lately are Kadrion. They do semi-realistic. They do like some really angular sort of like camera angles and some really cool like movie frame stuff.
Yeah.
Also, Aidelank is like a amazing concept artist for like he might as well be working for like either it's just some of the biggest blockbuster films for all I care. Like it's just amazing stuff.
Indeed, you brought up something that reminded me. When I started learning a little bit more seriously back in 2019 to 2020, I would watch all these popular concept artist YouTubers. Um, I don't really watch them anymore, but probably should. But like Imad and all them. And one of them, just an absolute like firebrand individual. Like got a dangling cigarette. He yells at you, bullies you on the video and stuff. Kind of like I don't really like the mood, but he brings up some good points.
Oh
And
yeah,
in
yeah.
one episode, he mentioned angles. I know you use that in a reference of camera angles, but it actually is important in terms of art. So when you look at art in terms of perspective, in terms of how you create your own personal touch, do you use shapes, angles, sort of different perspectives that kind of create this unique version of what we know as your art?
Hmm. So it's a really good question. It would have me answering in a way that um would essentially like cater toward if you look at some of your favorite films, a lot of them use and that will plan these out with like concept art
Yeah,
perhaps or something like that. They have like these really sharp angles about them. And so it does make a difference because otherwise it can just look a little bit like typical. But
yeah.
it's some of those things that stand out. If I could name some in particular, totally would.
I'm looking on Twitter for the very specific reference I'm coming up in my head. However, maybe a basic, very easy to grasp reference would be Disney. You look at all the Disney artists, they have characters like Zootopia, obviously, for Venom, Zootopia. But, you get characters that are boxy. You have characters that are almost triangular. Stuff like that. Stuff that takes shapes and sort of creates personalities
Yes.
out of them. And when I find this Twitter person, I'll shoot that in there as a reference, but go ahead.
Um, I guess what I would say is like something I aim for, and even when I do like photography. Okay, so I'm probably gonna make some parallels throughout this podcast because like there are like other hobbies I sort of like derive inspiration from in my art, but like
Mhm.
I look for like the longer focal length when I try and make things um like portraits uh or simply just in general when I make art, because that is what seems to get a bit more interest. It just depends on what it is. Um, but I generally look for like the longer focal length in like say public media or stuff like that that sort of inspires the art.
Oh yeah. We're gonna keep moving on because I'm scrolling, I'm not finding them, and I definitely want to reference them because they have such unique uh, art and a very unique way of establishing personality out of everyday animals. And once I find it, I'll just shout it out there. But let's take a quick little turn from art. Obviously, we can discuss this for 10 million years, you and I, in regards to digital art and what you do. Um, but you also do so much more than that. As an artist, I know you from when 2018 you did the DJ set. So I know you first as a musician, musical artist. When did you get into doing music?
Um, so definitely music is a big one for me because I actually I figured I would do something in school besides just, the usual. So I'm like, I'll just pick up a
Yeah.
violin and like see what happens. And 5 years later, I kind of like be like, this is kind of lame. I'm gonna do something else. But
Hmm.
um, the whole point of like music was still in me. It's just certain styles and stuff, and how I presented myself, how I perform is like something like that I really wanted to take heavy consideration. So that's why I went in a band in high school. Yeah, that was
Ooh.
really fun. So that's basically the start, the little ember, like the little spark there. But it ended up turning into I ended up listening to Dead Mouse. That was like the first electronic music I got into, and I've been sort of diversifying my listening ever since. And the reason that's so important is because it's shaped like that. Okay, maybe I should get into electronic music, and maybe I should get into uh, um producing and DJing maybe. So finally in college, I that college is where I went for music production specifically. So, that is where I really got to sort of blossom in that regard. Did a few DJ gigs here and there. Was able to um, plan out for Megaplex, which is where we met. Uh, but long story short, that's sort of it's gone from like just learning an instrument, learning to play, uh, to wanting to get deeper in the box and more hands-on with the the backing side of, like, everything I listen to. So, that's basically what it's turned into, maybe being a like, a producer, a musician, and that's the gist.
Mm. And uh, before my next little thing, uh, s- their Twitter is Alopex, Alopex. Um, Whenever you get the chance, check that out. It's such angular, shape-driven art, almost like cardboard art, and it's very interesting. It's where I got that reference for that question. Um, but moving on with the music. So I
Okay.
remember your DJ set, which was great, by the way. I should
Hey,
do
thank
more,
you.
of course. But that was also of course, my first, and probably like only time listening to a DJ. And so,
Okay.
what equipment do you use? That is such a like a foreign world to me. Like I've instruments, I do acoustic and digital, but I've never the concept deep of DJ never came into my head.
I will entertain that despite, that being more of a recent change for me is, being,
Mhm.
breaking away from DJing myself, but, being more toward production or just,
Yeah,
instrumental in general. But I will entertain that. I had, started out with it's a the Mix Track Pro 3 by, uh yeah, I forget the
somebody.
name, but, uh, that is a two-track controller, so it was limited to where, like, if I was wanting to do faster paced sets like, uh, drum and bass, or stuff like that, it would be very difficult for me to, like, wanna flip back and forth or do, like, mashups, things like that. So, I end up getting an upgrade from that to a Reloop, Mix 8, which is a 4, uh, 4 deck? No, sorry, 4 channel controller. So, it is so much more flexibility when you have just you don't have to worry about just this one track, then the next. You could just, like, have different things in queue, and you can really build some beefy, sets, and you can do, like, sampling, things like that. It's so much more versatility. And that's
Hmm.
where if that's what anyone wants to do, Vortex really the way to go.
Oh yeah, that's just completely over my head. I started with a guitar back in when I was 14. Well, clarinet, but who plays clarinet? Um, but I've got a wide collection of instruments now, and of course, a growing digital audio collection of instruments with my MIDI keyboard. So now that you have kind of moved on to a different medium of production and releasing this art of music, what do you use now for your instruments?
So,
And program, sorry.
okay. So, all right, yeah, and I do have some cool insights there. So, I'm on a MacBook. Okay, I've had it since 2016. That's what I got in college, so I kind of just stuck with it, rolled with it. But what's really great is I have access to Logic Pro. Logic
Yes.
Pro is like the amped up garage band, and
Mhm.
that you can literally have a drummer, a virtual drummer, do like everything for you, and then you can customize it. You can change the different styles. It doesn't have to be like acoustic drums. It could be electronic drums. Can be whatever. So it's so versatile, and you can. And it also has this built-in routing, so you can like. y- What I would do is I use this drummer for like now when I'm like looking to write and record metal music or just rock music, whatever. Um, and just set it up, and it would already have um I would have these channels preset to where they're processed correctly, and they sound just the very distinct style that I want for like things to duck when the drums the kick drum hits, or etc. It's immensely powerful, and it's to the point where it's hard to wanna go to another DAW, a digital audio workspace.
Mhm. Yeah, I've tried Fruity Loops, I've tried a variety of different ones. I also have a MacBook Pro, but I also have a 3080 PC. I stick the art creation on the MacBook, and I use Logic Pro X as well. Um, so it's intensely versatile. I love using it, and I need to take the music thing more seriously than my weird little doodles. But
Sure.
do you use anything like Contact? I use Contact. Obviously, I use instruments from like Sound Iron, stuff like that. I use a very eclectic sort of ethnic background of instruments. But with your music and your sort of theming, what kind of thing do you use to kind of create that sound?
So, if I'm going more toward the virtual instruments, yes, Contact's great 'cause, you can use things like, native instruments,
Hmm.
Complete is what I have, and I
Yep.
also use something called Analog Strings, and it is just incredible for dialing in either solo or ensemble, um, like violins, cellos, all that good stuff. And it also has the ability um, to blend or to even automate for like so they have these what you call um they have the parameters, I forget what they're called, but macros. You can uh just dial something like 0 to 100%, and it'll have a completely different sound. It could sound like a hybrid of electronic or orchestral, and it's just so powerful. But it's just great just for very immense sounding strings, and you can do processing in the box, and it just fits so well with a lot of the stuff I do actually.
Awesome. Yeah, same here. Although I don't have the instrument one, I tend to look up like, especially with Sound Iron, like real instruments that are sampled to fit the entire arrangement that you can make of noise with that instrument. Um, so I have way too much of that. But going back to the concept of the Mount Rushmore, with your favorite artists for art that we did, who's your biggest inspiration, perhaps in the fandom or in general, for music?
Yeah, I definitely want mention for fandom because I mean, there's just so much like I would say still very underrated talent. Um, so very first and foremost, I want to mention my biggest music inspiration is Goji. Uh, they are a non-binary DJ producer doing like hyper pop. They do um house, disco. They also do just like they have some other music projects. But basically so versatile, so incredibly gifted, talented. That is and also from Orlando. Goji's from Orlando. Um, so other than Goji, some inspirations are the band Run Definitely Run, which the lead singer is Omnam. Got some other really good fandom musicians in there, including a Foxamore from Europe. I can't remember where.
Fox and Peppers.
Yes, Foxamore. Then
Foxamore is
there's
Scotland.
yes. All right. Um, so other than that, um, I would just say there's some DJs here and there, and or producers that sort of catch my eye. I it's just been a bit. I've been a bit distant from that, so I can't
Hmm.
really think too well on whomever else.
No worries. For me, it always changes depending on what I'm working on. Very specifically though, although I try to not copy them, but someone like David Bowie.
So outside of the fandom, I have some big inspirations musically, um, just elsewhere. So Bring Me the Horizon is a big one for me, and metal and otherwise just screamo. Um, there's some other really good like progressive rock band, Nova Charisma. The lead singer also a part of a band called Hail the Sun, which is like post-hardcore, I would say. Very incredible stuff. Um, and other than that, I mean, just like a bunch of bands I could just list, but
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Same. It just if you're a great artist steals, but you should pick from like an entire plethora of amazing sounds and artists.
right, right.
But moving on slightly, because again, you're such a like Bowie, such a chameleon in what you do. And, you do so much, and it's all incredible.
I try.
Oh, indeed, we all do. Hopefully, right. I was in my little weird graveyard of not being able to use my tablet because of drivers, and then like, oh, I'll do music, but then it's like, oh, the tablet's working. Oh, I'll do that. Anywho, before I digress on my weird self, so
We're all a little bit weird. That's cool.
situating,
That's
I
kind
think
of the
that's
fandom.
the concept of the fandom, yeah. So let's talk very briefly about that because you could be seen at multiple cons, hopefully, right? Obviously, we met at Megaplex personally, but you do a lot of other cons. I think you were at what was it, TFF recently?
Yes, I
Long
just
time since this. Go ahead.
yeah, I just recently came back from Texas Furry Fiesta, which was amazing, by the way. I know there's
Mm,
been a lot of difficulty with the growing pains of a new venue, but I mean, other than that, it was just pretty great.
mhm.
Also looking to get into Furry Week in Atlanta. So I just decided, hey, Tech TFF went so well. Screw it, I'll just go to Furry Week in Atlanta. So doing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the bug hit me, and I'm like, I gotta check this out. But let me look at the hotel first because I have a lot of friends in Georgia that both are do the medieval stuff as well as this fandom. But I looked at the hotel and it's like a giant skyscraper rib cage, and I'm like, I'll pass on that one. But you were saying something.
Yeah, the hotel featured in what was it, Hunger Games Catch no Mockingjay, and then also I think that's one. Loki. That is really cool. But yeah, it just if for anyone fearful of heights, that is not your hotel.
Mm. Yes, yes. Don't do as I do and make sure you actually look at the hotel before you book it. Although I booked that like 6 months before I even realized Megaplex was a thing. I didn't know about Megaplex until the month of maybe a month out, and I'm like, wait a minute,
Very
I,
interesting.
I was gonna go to Disney, right? And then I'm like, wait a minute, there's this thing instead. But so I will be at for sure. I might do one of the Pittsburgh ones, but for sure I will be at A&E next, which is A&E 23. But is there a favorite con that you've done recently or since you've been going?
the some of the big ones are always they're just so great. It's just like hard to say for sure. But I mean, personally, I had the best experience all around at Texas Furry Fiesta, mainly before they changed to the new hotel. But other than that, I would also give a shout out to yeah, Megaplex was really good. It's just they're not doing like the villas, so it's gonna be difficult to get party
Yeah,
hard
I understand that's a
stuff in.
controversial opinion. I'm okay with it though.
Yes. Um, but yeah, basically those two, and then also of course Atlanta. Those
Mm.
are like I've had the best overall experiences from.
Oh yeah, there's a camping one. I wrote down all the ones that happen in a year that are still active, and I don't off the top of my head. I wrote it down. There's a piece of paper somewhere floating in the ether here in Valhalla, if you will. But
Harvest
there's a
Moon
camping one,
Hellfest?
maybe. It's actually near you.
Oh, hmm. I think
There's a camping one.
there's one going on in Murfreesboro or somewhere around there, but outside
Maybe.
of Nashville. I think I know what you're talking about. I think it's supposed to go on this month, but I didn't opt into that because
Yeah,
I didn't really. I just didn't really plan it out.
touche. Yeah, no, a lot of them are very interesting looking, and I want to try them. I want to try at least once of each and every one of them this coming year or the year after, whatever
Okay.
have you. But, but, um, for you, of course, as an artist, and I know we talked about this privately before, in regards to things like the dealer's den. Um, you'll never see me in the dealer's den except to buy stuff. But do you ever see yourself comfortable enough to feature in one of these dealer dens in any capacity? Sort of get yourself out there a little more.
I think it would be great to like help out another artist with like a dealer stand at some point. I know that would be quite a commitment, but like it would just be like for like maybe a brief part of the day. Um, but that would be nice just to kind of get a feel for it because I have gone to these dealer stands and I like buying stuff, of course, but it's just I don't imagine myself really in that capacity. I'm just
Hmm.
mainly just the one who likes floating around and
Yeah.
otherwise just putting myself out there and networking. But I'll think about it. Mainly artist alley because that would be more
Well, yeah.
along my style.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind when I said that. But I kind of melded into one because of the Telegram group Art Dealers Den is pretty
Yes.
much that. Um, my favorite, of course, that's done Megaplex as well as the other shows that I've done. So I obviously you want to put a personal shout out to PrismTreeStudio. They do glass art. Um, they're always good to check out. I love all these little niche kind of fads that pop up at cons, like Megaplex 19, which wasn't the best experience for me, but everyone
Hmm.
started buying these like masks. Ironic, if you will, right? But buying these masks with like obviously animal faces on them, and
Hmm.
as soon as one person buys it, everyone does. Is there any sort of like con fad that you've kind of went with, or was it mused by?
LED name tags. Those things are just like so
Uh-huh.
overdone. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, I saw that at Megaplex too as well. 2019, they were selling for like $30.
Yep.
Yeah, no, really awesome though.
Yeah. In regards to your persona and your look, yeah, I would definitely, and I like the way you have your photography set up too. It's like you have,
Mm,
and that's something that I also want to try more of. Is like I look all around for references and stuff, and I just try and
yeah.
like get more of this sort of form and this vibe. But like I've even done this one time before on a commission. I literally just took a picture of myself and was just, like, referencing it, you know? I keep forgetting, like, "Hey, I work hard on this body that I try and keep up with my diet and exercise. Why don't I just try and, like, get some really cool poses?" And just nobody ever has to see these pictures, but they can very well help me for, like, just getting the vibe. So,
Mm.
I like that you do that too, or at least, like, um, with your work, but, like, I don't know if you've done that with your others, but, it sounds it's like something I'd be into.
Ironically, I've not, but that is a concept that's hit me as well. There's a reference sheet that I'm doing now, a traditional ref sheet, and there's a pose the person has for their original art that they showed me that reminds me so much of Bret the Hitman Hart, the wrestler. He's got this sort of like open arm pose that he does all the time back in like the 90s. And I'm like, that's what that reminds me of. I need to get that. I need to get a picture of Bret doing that facing the camera because I really like that pose for this character. It kind of goes well with it. And I can't. Like, there is no good image of Bret the Hitman Hart doing this pose that he's like one of the only things he's known for, besides the controversial stuff. And obviously, if you're a wrestling person, I'm not, but you know what I mean. But so I'm
Okay.
like, wait a minute, I exist. I have a camera.
Yeah.
I can do it. I've got literally a professional photography setup, camera, screens, green screens, studio stuff that I've had for years, lights, camera, action, even for filming, for literal professional film. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do it. So I did in the art that's probably released, if not released by now, end of the month, April. The middle picture is me doing that because apparently that nobody for like what 20 years could take a good picture of some dude that's a major public figure. Um, but yeah, no, I totally get that. Uh, but I also do literal actual photography. Most of what I put out that you see is gathering like cosplays and more recent stuff, more recent things that like suit inspirations. The mask that you see, the wolf mask that became the starting point of the Sona. When I got that, I originally was going to paint it black. You know, it was going to be a white cat and a black wolf. But I'm like, I'm too lazy to paint this, and it looks amazing already. And that kind of slowly evolved into Aethelwulf. And it wasn't until seeing the art in the early stage that you were making that obviously is out by now that we've discussed. You know, I was like, yeah, no, this is an absolute character change for me. This is definitely, you know, my Sona now. But most of my art is just kind of like spur of the moment, right? Just like, I've got
Yeah.
empty walls, so I've got photography canvases on each wall, and then there's a window facing usually sunlight. So I've got natural lighting if need be, but I do have
Yeah.
studio cameras that are like 500-watt lights and stuff. But that's what I do. Uh, Mostly just spur of the moment. I feel like taking photos.
As we know in the furry fandom, you just put on a mask, you just put on a first head, and then you're just like a completely different person, and you're just
Mhm.
like way more charismatic, way more just willing to take photo ops. You feel like you're just like this ascended sort of like person that you weren't like so much before. It's like it really does bring something interesting out of you. And even if it's just like a plain mask, like you were talking about, it's just like you can do so much with it. And it just
Oh
like
yeah.
can really break the barrier of just like, not feeling so uptight about things, feeling more
Oh yeah.
experimental, etc.
Oh yeah. Even a mask or an outfit. You know, I notice when I, as you've seen them, have taken photos, you've noticed I've used different clothing for each, and kind of started to slowly develop, because I have all their masks, and they've all seemed to kind of created their own costume for each. And the Aethelwulf one, even though it's in no way, shape, or form Viking, is definitely that red vest, which is from The Cat Returns, the Baron. If you know Baron, the orange tabby,
All right.
tiny little tabby, in The Cat Returns, and that horrible one song musical movie Studio Ghibli thing. I can't remember. Literally, the entire movie is just them singing Country Road, and I was like, I was sold on the title photo being a picture of the Baron, and my poor little kitty's only like 5 seconds of the film. But I got a Legacy cosplay and a Baron cosplay, but Aethelwulf's kind of taken on the stripped back version of Baron.
That's really
But
nice. I like the
mm,
versatility there. Mm.
indeed, but narrowing this down, of course, we're hitting that time, and hopefully that little jarring dissection we had to do with our bot doesn't cut too much. Usually about a minute or two. But is there anything else you want to sort of cover before I let you go?
There's definitely something I want to like mention to fellow artists and
Yeah,
stuff like that. I'm somebody who is still developing my career. I'm someone who's still trying to figure things out. And just like anyone else who's just like, you have to make that first step and you have to see where things go. Everyone's different. But something I want to briefly discuss is imposter syndrome. And this is something that I've experienced a number of times when I've been like confronting commissioners who I actually like really admire, including yourself, and things like that, where I wonder if I'm like, and this is even when I go to like conventions. I meet these really cool people, and we're just vibing. Usually, when I'm just like tipsy or something like that, and it just helps to like sort of break me from that sort of, um, reservedness. But this is something I think is very much overlooked in sort of discussions. But I feel it, you might feel it, but it's a part of it. It's like a growing pain. Um, you get around it one way or another if you just really don't let it get to you. If you do, then uh, imposter syndrome wins. But then that's really what I want to mention is a process, and I'm in the process, and maybe whoever's listening is in the process. Just keep doing what you're doing, and I will too, and we'll get somewhere. Yeah.
it is absolutely. That's something that I know very much about. You know, I have a very abusive background, and was pretty much deep in my shell and very high anxiety, social awkwardness. Now, granted, I am very fortunate for the friends turned family that I have, because I don't consider biologicals family. That's my history. But the friends that I have in the shows that we do has really helped me a lot of issues that stem from our backgrounds. You know, growing up, how we're raised or how we're treated, and it's very prevalent as well in the fandom. I think our type of people kind of gravitate toward it. Maybe the anonymity of the internet or the suits and masks, but it's something that if anybody is having such a major issue with, I'm here. I help a lot of people with the festival I do, because I've come out of it and I know approaches that do help. And of course, yourself. Um, Not to say to flood us, but I mean that there are people that understand and know what you're going through, both currently how you might be feeling, but also those that have kind of worked very hard to get out of that and sort of reach, maybe not the finish line, but an idea of themselves that they never thought they'd ever become. So, of course, I parent that idea as well very seriously. So, if anybody watching, comment below or so. And on our Discord, there's always gonna be a outlet for that too.
All right. Sounds really great. I'm looking
Bip, bip,
forward to it.
bap,
Yeah.
bap-a-da-boo. Indeed, a woo, a woo. Um, so I suppose that'll be that. A cheeky, creaky's chair. I need a better chair. Maybe I'll just sit on the floor like a real animal. That'll be that for this episode.
All right.
The first episode, of course, of the Furry World podcast. I have another podcast, so I want to keep saying that name. So it's going to be a learning process to say this one. But the Furry World podcast here on the Furry World YouTube channel. Of course, this is going to be kind of the main attraction of this channel, the end of the month podcast. But I'm going to try to do a bi-monthly cycle of things from gaming to first making art, etc. Music. The music on this podcast, on this channel, is my music that I hopefully get off my butt right now to do, as well as some of the art, maybe, perhaps, if it's good enough. So definitely check it out. Give a like, subscribe, favorite. I definitely want to list all of the artists we've referenced in this video down below in the descriptions, because I'm too lazy to put it on the screen, but down below in the description. And from obviously, because I'm going to ask you to put it in the Discord because I can't spell some of them. My beloved friend here, immensely talented, literally one of my top inspirations in doing art myself. And everything you do just helps inspire me to do whatever I'm doing as good as I can do. So that's why you're the first episode and definitely not the last. So thank you for being on this. I deeply appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Mm.
It's good to really talk it out and just like vibe. And I don't get to do it much, especially on a deep level, but it's nice.
Well, one thing I do want you to do, and not me do, I want it in your words. Where can we find you? Where can we find your art? And I know at the moment, as of recording, you're not under commission, but obviously, how do we get to you?
Will be Skreeborg, Skreeborg, on Twitter, on really any other social media, Instagram. I'm on Telegram too. You can hit me up. Don't be weird, but however it works. I also have a website, Skreeborg, .card.co, and that is essentially how you get to meet.
I love the evolution of artists, and I think you're definitely leading the way. And a couple other people I'll mention when I remember them eventually. And that'll be that. So thank you, and we'll wrap it up here for this episode.
Woo!
Ow!